And continuing on with Caesar's Civil War, Book 1, Chapter 43. Erat inter oppidum Ilerda et proximum colum. So there was, inter, between the town of Ilerda and the nearby hill, ubi castra Petrius atqui Afrianus habebant, where Petrius and Afrianus had their camp. And that was just a little clause in the middle, so you can ignore that for now. So there was between this town a planities, which is a flat level or flat ground, circa passum 300, around 300 paces or steps. Atqui and in hoc and in this, ferry, remember this is an adverb, sometimes it's spelt fermi, sometimes it's spelt ferry, it means almost in a medio space. So these are taking the ablative because of the in preposition, and in almost the middle space, or the middle ground, tumulus erat, there was a little mound. Sometimes it means a tomb, but here it would mean a mound. Paulo editor, or it is a comparative, which means it was a little higher. Quem, see, which if, the quem's taking the tumulus here, the mound, which if occupavisset, the pluperfect, Caesar, here's our nominative. So Caesar, if he occupied this and communiced it, which is fortifying it, just has com in front of it as a prefix. So if Caesar took this tumulus and he fortified it, ab oppido, from the town at Ponte, also in the ablative, from this ab. So from the town and the bridge at comitu omni, and all the comitu, these are the provisions for the army. Quem in oppidum contulerant, which they were contulerating into the town, which they were bearing into the town or carrying into the town. This would be all their provisions, which they were taking to the town. If, say, interclusorum, which is a future, adversarios confitebat. So Caesar, taking a verb of confident. He was confident that he could shut off his adversaries, the people he's fighting against, from the town and the bridge, if he occupied this tumulus. Hoc sperans. The verb is spero. This is the present participle singular nominative. So Caesar was hoping, hoc this. Legions 3, ex castris educated. So he educated, he led out 3 legions from the castris, from the camp, qui of the enclitic here, and an Aci in locos Idonius instructor. And so he drew up his battle line formation in suitable places, so which is plural. So he's drawn up his line in suitable places. Unius legionis antisignos. The antisignos are people who fight or skirmish in front of the standards, which are called signa. And anti means before. It's also a military position. So procare atque eum tumulum. Eum's the male version of a tumulum, and ubit. So he ordered, unius means one, it's one of the praetor nominatives that has ius in the genitive. So he ordered one of the antisignus, one of these skirmishes of one of the legions, to procare, to run, pro usually means forward, and to occupy or to take the eum tumulum, the mound. Qua re cognita, ablative absolute. When this thing was cognited, when this was known, celator means quickly. Quae, those who, in station pro castris erant Afriani cohortes. So, the cohorts of Afrianus, which were erant, quae, in the station pro means in front of the camp, brevior itinere, they had a shorter march or a shorter journey, adiundum occupandum, locum mittunta. They were sent out, that's the passive plural, third person plural. They were sent out to occupy the same locum, the same place. Contentator prolio. Prolio is a neuter, here it's in a dative ablative form. So you might want to say, in battle it was contended, which literally means from this. So in a battle it was fought, and quod, because, prius, prior in with the accusative tumulum, into the mound, Africani, so this is his people, it's using the N here as an adjective, so his people venerated prior. So Afrianus's cohorts, who had a a shorter distance to travel. They arrived at the Mount Prius first. Nostrae repellenter. So they repelled our men, Nostrae. And alias submissus subsidus. This looks like an ablative absolute. And they had sent submissus alias others subsidus for a help. As a help. That might be dative, who knows, the whole thing might be ablative absolute. So they sent others to help. So our men verterade their turga, they showed their backs, they turned and seque themselves ad signum legione recipere cogunta. So cogunta means they were forced, says reflexive, they're forced to take themselves. This comes from the verb here, taking in the infinitive. So they're forced to recuperate themselves to the standards of the legion, which are the flags basically in the front line. 44. Genus erat pugna militum illorum. So genus the type, erat there was, of fighting, pugna, of illorum, of their men, militum, of their soldiers, double genitive. So this is the type of the fighting of their men. Ut that, magno impetu primo. So in the first place, in primo, magno impetu, there was a great force or a great attack, and they would pro-current, they would run forwards. Pro again is forward. Audacta, it's an adverb, means boldly. They would caperent a locum. They would boldly seize a place, take a place. Ordines suas non magno per serverant. So their formations, their orders, fighting really in a collected fashion. They did not greatly preserve or conserve or their rows. Rari dispersasque pugnerant. And they fought rari, which means at intervals, and dispersed, means the same thing in English. So they fought scattered in here and there, basically. Si premerentur. If they were pressed, they would referre their pedem. They would take their feet and excedere from the loco and go recede from the place. That's just an ablative. Non turpe existimarent. So they didn't think, that's the non, and existiments mean they thought, they did not think it was turpe, which is foul or shameful. Cum Lusitanus relisqui barbarus barbaro genere. So with the Lusitanus and the rest of the barbarians, barbaro in this barbarous type and this barbarian type, quote means a certain type. I'll just finish it. Pugne as suefacted. So they were suefactid to do this, which they were accustomed to have this certain type of barbarian type of pugne, of fighting, from the rest of the barbarians and these, who the hell are they in English? Lusitanians or something. Okay. Quod fere fit, which almost happens, which nearly always happens. Quibus, in which, quisque, anyone in locus militae, so quisque in militae are the nominatives, anyone who's a soldier who is inveterate, who means they've been there for a long period of time, in locus is in places. And we have quibus and locus are the same sort of dative ablative plural. So if any soldier has been inveterate and fighting in places, so that ut multem eorum region constitutionine movetur, so that he moves or is moved in the custom, or he spent much of his time in this region. As we know from inveterate, means he's been there a long time, and multum just means much or a lot. Tum, then haec these things perturbed, or actually then this ratio, this method or type of things, perturbed our men who in sutos, so nostros in sutos, they were unaccustomed, who was generis pugne, of this type of fighting. Enim, for, say themselves, circumiri, they thought they were being encircled or something. Ab aperto latere, from the open side. The left-hand side has a shield, the open side has a sword, so it's more open. And arbitrantur, for they were thinking themselves, which took this infinitive from a head verb, they thought themselves being surrounded or circumvented on their open side because of single people pro-currenting. They They saw singular attacks of people running. They were thinking this with running singular people, something like that. So ipsi themselves, autem moreover, suos ordines servare, that they should preserve or conserve suos ordines, conserve their rows or the ranks that they were holding, neque, and neither to discedere, leave from the signus, from the standards, and neque sine gravi causa, and not without some gravi, serious or heavy cause or reason, from eum locum, from this place, quem caperet, which they had taken, dimitti. And the I shows it's plural again. So they shouldn't leave the standards, nor be basically dismissed or go away from the place which they had taken without a serious reason. Censor it, they thought, oportore, that they ought to. And ought here is taking these other infinitive, servere, discedere, etc. Okay, I'll do a bit of scrolling. Where are we going? Down there. Idaque, and so, or and so accordingly, perturbatus antisignus legio, legion's nominative. So the legion with the perturbed antisignus, these are the people who skirmished before the standards, out in the forefront. So the legion with these skirmishers confused, the legion qua which in eo cornu considerate, which they stood or were halted in that corner, in that wing basically, the locum non tenuit, they did not, the legion did not tenuit, did not hold to this place, atque in proximum colle se recepit. So they took themselves, reflexive, into the proximum colle, into the nearby hill. 45. Caesar paeni omne eci perterrita, so Caesar's perterrified almost. Quod praetor opinionem consuetudinem acciderat, cohortatus suos legionem nonem subsidio ducet. So Caesar took up this cohortatus. So with almost all these acci perterrited, all these lines were terrified, which was besides opinion or besides expectation and the constitutional, which and their habitual way of doing things or the customary way of doing things, this had happened. Acciderat means it had happened. So which had happened besides their custom and expectation, they were all terrified. So Caesar encouraged Suos, his own man, and he ducated, he led the non-am legion, the 9th legion, as a subsidiary, as a help, for a help. This might be a dative or something. Hostem insolita, so the enemy, insolently inacrita, so insolently inacrita, and acridly or fiercely, insolenta, you might put stubbornly or something, who are, the hostem were insequentem, which is a present participle, or following or pressing behind nostros, our men. So Caesar supprimitted them. He crushed them or stopped them in their tracks. Rursus qui terga vertere, and again Rursus, they verterate their back. They turn their backs, and ad opetum, to the town of Alerta, they recuperate say. So they took themselves to the town, and sub muro, up against the wall, in front of the wall or under the wall, he forced them to consistere, to halt or stop. Okay. Said, but non a legionis milites, said, but the milites, double genitive of the 9th legion, elate studium, with elated zeal, or they were elated with studio is zeal and enthusiasm. So while saciri acceptum detriment volant, so while they wanted, dums while, volants while they wanted, saciris to repair, this comes from the 4-form conjugation, the acceptum detriment, this is the losses they had accepted or received. Temere, nice little adverb, means rashly. Insecuti, that's plural. They followed those who are fugientes, those who are fleeing. Longius, which means it's comparative, so rather far or further than they should have. In locum iniquum progrediuntur, so they progressed into a iniquum locum, which means it's a sometimes it can mean it's not level, other times it's an unfavourable place. et sub montem, and up under the mountain, sub with the accusative, which was our daily dictionary word yesterday, was sub, up in front of the mountain, in quo erat oppidum positum, in which the town was posited or placed, in which the town elerta was placed, succeedant, so they succeeded. They took themselves there. That's how far they went. So we have progredianta means walking, and succeeding also means how far they went. Okay, we're almost done. As you know, cedo means to walk or to go. So our daily dictionary word will be iniquum, which we saw here. I've set it up here. Iniquous, unjust, unfair, synonyms nefas, fas. Unequal, dispar, unequal is impar, unfavourable or disadvantageous, unkind or hostile. We've got these lists of other things, and unsuitable. So it was an unequal, unfavourable place where they were at. Okay. Hinc, se recipere, cum velant. So cum velant, when they wanted to retake themselves, Hinc, from here, remember they'd gone longest, they'd gone a lot further than was safe, and they'd progressed into some unfavourable ground. Rursus, again, illi ex loco superior. These people from their higher place, loco superior, they premented, they pressed nostros, our men. They had a superior ground, so they could do some crushing of their own.